What's good YouTube, Man of Steel here, and in today's video, as the title suggests, we're taking on the Glaceon EX expert solo battle with only fire types. If you're looking on how to beat Glaceon with no trainers in your deck, I made a separate video on that, and I'll make sure to link it either in the title card or in the description down below, as I decided to make that its own separate video as it took on both Glaceon and Arceus Weavile. However, in that video, I did mention I was going to make a separate video on how to beat Glaceon with just fire types. And in hindsight, I don't know how necessary this video is, as when it came down to it, I only found two lists that I confidently suggest to beat this consistently, and neither of the two are reinventing the wheel. However, I found it more important to deliver on my promise of making this video, as well as if I only help one person, that's more than enough for me. So with that said, let's start breaking down this list so I could get into the list that I recommend to beat this challenge. This list on paper and manned by like an actual person has the potential to be very strong and almost like competitive to an extent. Although I'm not competitively the biggest fan of Glaceon, once it gets going, it gets really annoying not only with the chip damage, but the 90 is no joke. So there will be games where they start Manaphy, build up both Glaceon and Palkia, and once that gets going, it's really hard to stop. However, the majority of the time, the computer does not do this deck justice, as they'll recklessly place its energy, aggressively take Manaphy out of the active to hit you with Palkia, and proactively use Sabrina to bring out anything that you have in your backline. And those three things lead to a subpar performance by the computer that disrupt an otherwise sound strategy that could be some real trouble if placed in the right hands. Despite the computer's lackluster use of the deck, there's still some decks that I can't recommend for this challenge. One being Blaine, as everything in your Pokemon lineup are too weak and fragile as Palkia is able to two-shot every Pokemon in that deck. And the other one is Arcanine EX, as its own recoil plus the chip damage of Glaceon make it where you don't knock them out and they immediately return by knocking you out. So when you eliminate Blaine and Arcanine EX, the two decks that you're left with are both Charizard and Infernape. The number one deck I have to recommend is Charizard, mainly because its Crimson Storm knocks out anything that the Glaceon deck puts in front of you, regardless of Cape, regardless of healing with Irida, regardless of anything that they do. A 4-energy Charizard is going to blow right through it. Other than that, there's not much to say, as the only other thing is that Moltres is a great lead against this Glaceon list, as it's one of the few fire cards that is actually not weak to water. And with cards like Dawn, you're able to hit for 70 as early as your second turn, which allows you to knock out a Manaphy before they get anything really going. And other than that, there's not much to say for a Charizard deck. It's been doing the same thing since the release. You just build up Charizard, Crimson Storm twice, and that's the game. When it comes to Infernape, the list is very similar, as you can see here. The only thing that puts Infernape one tick under Charizard for this challenge is the fact that Palkia, as well as a Glaceon with Cape, cannot be one-shot by Infernape. However, we do mitigate this with the addition of Rocky Helmet, as well as the fact that Infernape's HP is so high, you actually don't really get punished by not knocking them out in one shot. And just like the Charizard list, a lead Moltres is just so huge in both not only buying you time, but potentially with the help of Dawn, getting aggressive and being able to deal damage before they build up too much of a backline. Overall, I wish I was able to present you a more creative or interesting list for this challenge. But when push comes to shove, consistency trumps creativity. And realistically, the purpose of this video is so that you could grab my list and beat the challenges at hand. And in this case, we have no parameters. It's just fire only. So we might as well play the two best fire decks that are available to us. If you found this video helpful or enjoy everything Pokemon Pocket, please consider liking and subscribing. And above all else, stay pro. All right, we get to go first. And full disclaimer, although I probably mentioned it when doing the deck profile, this list is not gonna like reinvent the wheel. The point of this video is not to reinvent the wheel. It's just what decks can beat this as consistently as possible. And by far, it's Charizard and Infernape, which is the two lists that we will be showing in today's video. Again, I already went through the deck profile, and I probably explained why the other lists don't work, but it's probably what I'm going to talk about the most as we go through this gameplay. It's pretty standard. It's just nothing new. You just gotta build up your Charmander. Here we'll put the Moltres because this deck has Sabrina and they'll love to use it. So this way we protect our Charmander. And now we have communication to look for Charmeleon or attempt to. Yeah, we'll just pass there. But I guess one big reason as to why it's important to point out the fact that Charizard and Infernape are your best options here for this challenge is the fact that Arcanine actually... what happened there? Okay, yeah, they're going through the motions. Okay, we got everything we need. But yeah, Arcanine isn't a good option for this, although it will work, like, more often than not, probably. Especially if you just keep retrying until it works. It will. But it's good to keep in mind that Arcanine versus Glaceon, you'll lose that battle every time. Due to Arcanine hitting himself, Glaceon tagging you for an extra bit of damage. And Jesus, that's not how we wanted to do. And then they hit you for 90 plus weakness. So they're hitting you for 110. So that automatically, like, you don't want to use Arcanine in a challenge like this. Everything in the Blaine deck, although the Blaine deck, again, is something that you could play multiple times and eventually get the win is not something I could recommend, because everything is so low HP, where Palkia on the without building up to Dimensional Storm is able to knock you out, 2-hit everything in your list. So although you will have hands where you win, you don't want to put yourself in that position. Which is why I ultimately, as boring of an answer as this might be, the best way to do it is just Charizard or Infernape. And then Charizard, the best part about Charizard is the fact that you do in fact one shot no matter what they have in front of you. Like if you have Infernape and they cape their Glaceon, you can't one shot it, but you do build up enough damage. And the best part about both Charizard and hold up, I'm not trying to get too wordy here, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. Like the upside of both Charizard and Infernape that other fire options don't have is the HP total. Their ability to take up most hits that they send your way is really important. In my luck with these coin flips has been abysmal. But as soon as you set up the Charizard, the game's over. So we're fine in that front. But yeah, the large HP totals is probably the most important part. And as we saw here, they love using Sabrina, which is why we put Moltres early. Now this game plan that they have here is pretty respectable. We're kind of forced to do this. They can't Dimensional Storm yet, so there's no reason to cape the Moltres. But yeah, and then I can't even exaggerate how bad these coin flips has been. But yeah, for this challenge, the main I guess where the creativity comes in terms of how to beat it is when it comes to the no trainer challenge. And I have a separate video to how to beat this one specifically, and the Arceus Weavile one with a specific deck that's built just for having no trainers. So that's why I made a separate video for anybody that's looking for how to beat this with just the fire types. Sort of if you're looking for an answer, there's you don't have to watch a whole video, a whole 20-minute video, and find something that has nothing to do with what you're trying to find. And technically we could already start from here, but just one Inferno Dance is positive, and then we just go back-to-back Crimson Storms. And yeah, okay, so after basically the worst Moltres performance you've ever seen, we will finally get into a position where we can win this. Yeah, and I guess I should have caped here. It's not going to make a difference in the long run, because they don't have the board to punish us, but realistically I should have played around. Around the Dimensional Storm. Moltres could have survived that hit, but it's nor here nor there. Let's just go here. We could even have start building up a separate Charmander. But let's just go Crimson Storm. Then most they could do is Cyrus and hit us for 30, or just hit us for Cyrus and hit the Moltres for 30, or hit Charizard for 50. But they're just gonna go through the motions, ramp up and pass. That's about it. Yeah, and it's just game over. And this is how basically every Charizard matchup goes in this challenge. They're not gonna be strong enough. Moltres is actually really good at being a wall against this deck. When I was first building up the no trainer list, I experimented with a lot of all fire to try to get both of them together, but I just couldn't find anything consistent enough. But Moltres was a big part of what made it possible to do in the first place. All right, and this time we're going second, but we're using the Infernape list this time around. And this a beautiful start, as we're guaranteed Chimchar with the lead Moltres. It doesn't matter what they have, and I feel like we can't lose this. The downside to Infernape is that you're probably not one-shotting anything. The upside though is with cards like Rocky Helmet, and as well as building up a Moltres first, and just how fast you actually build up the Infernape. You make up for the fact that you don't one-shot Palkia or a Glaceon with Cape. Because Charizard clearly 200 damage is gonna wipe anything that your opponent has in front of it. there's very few cards that can survive it, and it's basically just the Bastion. So let's go research here. We do want to see a second Moltres, like ideally, mainly because they love to Sabrina. So I guess in I might regret it actually. Like not putting down a second Chimchar. But I kind of want to hold it for communication as well. Their next turn is pretty straightforward, so we could even hold the Rocky Helmet. Let's just go Inferno Dance here. Alright. And the complete polar opposite of the Charizard. Of the Moltres in the Charizard game example. Where I felt like out of like what was like 12 or 15 flips, we hit like 3. Maybe 4. Alright, now that Glaceon is actually very scary, especially with Belt. But we are in a position. What makes Moltres really good, whether it's the Charizard deck, whether it's this one, or whether you're trying to play like, I don't know. I honestly again played around, tinkered with the idea of all fire deck, like no trainer list. And Moltres was like the few games that I was actually able to take from this was because I led Moltres, and that it's able to wall this pretty well due to like the lack of weakness, right? Starting next turn, I'll probably start using communication because they could easily go into Glaceon and Sabrina out on Inferno. And there's no reason to Inferno Dance, unfortunately. Let's just pass there. Let's see. So double Glaceon's actually very like respectable and just terrifying. The good thing is that they gave us the Manaphy, so that's actually really good for us. Let's go communication. The reason is that we really want to see Infernape here, mainly because perfect. Because if they were to Sabrina, we wanted to survive the Glaceon attack. We could give him a Rocky Helmet as well. And let's take the knockout with this Moltres. So let's go Heat Blast here. And that way, regardless of which Glaceon swings, the Rocky Helmet combo is able to just end the game right here. So yeah, as you can see, it's not even close. Once you use either Charizard or Infernape, it's just the wipe. Like granted, you might have like a bad hand, maybe you don't see the Infernape line, and it'll take you a second or third try to get there. But trust me, a deck that could do it is either one of these. You can't go wrong. I personally suggest Charizard because it does one shot no matter what they have. But as you can see here with the helmet and building up a Moltres, we could easily build up enough damage for Infernape to be able to deal with what they got going on, as well as the 170 HP that Infernape has, as well as the 180 from Charizard. Either one is able to tank hits from, regardless of what they have going on. Usually, Palkia won't be in Dimensional Storm range. Like they won't build up to Dimensional Storm before you get your Infernape or Charizard going. So there's not much to fear about that situation. There's a bunch of plays we could do here. We could research. We could add energies around, but I'm not gonna waste their time. We're just gonna go for the knockout. And yeah, hopefully these examples helped. If you are looking for a list, I have to recommend either one of these two. Once again, if you found this video helpful or enjoy all things Pokemon Pocket, please consider liking and subscribing, and above all else, stay pro.